tantrum music? I thought you were going to send us
Do,
something.
You're going to play something, write something.
That's
Come
the Muppet
on.
song. Different show.
All right.
Sorry about that.
Stand by.
No, you got to keep that. Come on, this is don't. All right. Very good. Rabbi Saroken.
Hey.
What is the parsha this week?
This week's parsha, Lech Lecha. It's so filled with sort of these pinnacle moments, I suppose you could say.
Yeah, such as?
Well, you start off, Lech Lecha, you have Avram and Sarai, who will later become Abraham and Sarah, being called, well, Abraham or Avram is called out. And he's invited, or at least probably I should say commanded to, what do you think, commanded or invited?
Let's come back to
it.
Yeah.
To leave everything, right? To leave his home, to leave his family, to leave the land that he knows, and to go out into the unknown to a place that God will show him. And then God promises, along with that request, that God's going to make, his name a blessing. His descendants will be numerous. Everyone who blesses him will bless him. Everyone who curses him will curse. God will curse.
Right.
And there's sort of this sense that God's choosing Avram to do this really special mission with him or with God.
Right. So that's actually, I think that connects into the other question. Long debated. Why Abraham?
Mm-hmm.
Why is he the guy? Why is that the family? I think there's an interesting sort of historical debate about that, the answer to that question. But any thoughts on the top of your head about it?
I really love, there's one midrash that says that Avram is walking, sort of taking a walk one evening, and he sees a palace, and the palace is on fire.
Right.
And he says, basically sort of wondering, like, why is no one doing anything about this palace on fire? And Avram says, like, who's the manager here? And I feel like he's sort of in that moment, holding God accountable for the fire. But Abraham Joshua Heschel actually says that the sort of magical part of this is that, the word doleket that's used is it's a palace aglow.
Right.
Sort of that question of, like, sometimes when you see things, you can't tell if it's, something that's like beautifully lit up or if it's something that's, about to burn down. And so maybe if you like think about that midrash, Avram, soon to be Abraham, is that person who notices the things. Right. And who holds, others, including God, accountable, and who really feels like we all have to sort of do our part to watch out for this magnificent creation that God gifted us.
Right.
What do you think?
Yeah. No, it's a classic midrash. It's interesting. It's really a midrash that's sort of come back into vogue over recent years. Like Shai Held wrote about it. And all this stuff, and Heschel does use that as an important reference. And actually the machloket about why Abraham plays into the midrash as well, because the question is, what was it that enabled Abraham to notice, right? So, and either it was some sort of like extra sensitive or hypersensitive spiritual ability, like a spiritual sensitivity, or it was some kind of intellectual acuity. Mm-hmm. So Maimonides goes with the latter, and he says, oh no, what the reason Abraham was chosen was because he was basically, Maimonides, he was the first person to actually figure it out. Like he saw this, he saw that, and he deduced through a process of rationality and intellectual sort of unpacking of things. Oh, then there must be a God. And then there are other commentators who say, what's Maimonides saying? No. It's Abraham had like a special spiritual sensitivity.
It's also interesting as you're saying that. I'm thinking to myself that, one of the things I think that the Parsha sort of invites us to think about is is the idea of courage, right? Like in so many ways, we all, and I feel like this especially, sort of resonates for me, today, sort of with an election a day away, which is how willing are you to say, like, I'm in, right? And to take a leap, to go into the unknown. Like, the truth is that most of us really like certainty. We'd really rather stay in this exact moment, in this exact place.
Yeah, it's easy.
It's much more comfortable, and going into the unknown, I think, is really scary. And I feel like Avram, sort of moving forward in the story, he takes Sarai, later Sarah, his wife, and they take their nephew Lot. And, I sort of love the image of, 70 additional people that are like, have their bags or their backpacks or their luggage sort of like running, after them, saying like, wait, I'm coming. And all of these people sort of have this faith in a tomorrow that they can't imagine. And I don't know why, but for me, that's sort of a beautiful and somewhat inspiring and encouraging thought.
Right. Yeah. No, absolutely. It's a remarkable thing. 100%. I mean, just to clarify for folks, we're recording this the day before the election. They will see it 3 days after the election, the day after the elections, the day after the election.
So there's another part that's actually interesting too, though. So you keep getting, there's so many different and exciting parts in this Torah portion that if anyone hasn't read it, it's definitely one that you want to jump into. But the next part of this Torah portion, one of the place that we go to, is that Abraham is, he's with Sarai and he's with his nephew Lot, and they're traveling together, and it seems like this family is like doing quite well together, and they're 70 friends. And then you get to this place where the Torah tells us that like something is happening and the land can't sustain both Avram and Lot, right? Like they have too much. Avram's become a wealthy man. He's got a lot of gold. He's got a lot of silver. He has a lot of cattle. Lot also is a man who has an abundance. And then you see that Avram says to Lot, like, the land can't support us all. Look out, and we'll divide up. You pick. You sort of pick which area you want to go to, or which you want to claim. I don't know how that's resonating with you nowadays or this year as you think about that.
Well, I mean, in some ways, yes, in some ways, not so much. I do remember Stu Light. Stu Light? Stu Light's a rabbi, was JTS when I was there, so many years ago at this point, but just a lovely, lovely guy. I think most of his rabbinic work has been on the West Coast. I think he ended up working as a camp director. I haven't talked to him for a long time. Anyway, I remember him giving a drash on that passage that you were just referencing. And what he said was the setup is because there is a nicer area of the land.
Mm-hmm.
There is, and the setup is, like you take this area and I'll take that area, or I'll take that area and you take this area. In other words, like it's the same thing, still getting what he wants. And Abraham lets Lot choose.
Yeah.
Right. And Lot takes the better, and then Abraham deals with the right.
Which is such a funny thing to me. I always have to reread that part. It's sort of like, my kids just moved. Gideon, is out in college this year, and Noah's in her gap year in Israel. And it's so interesting, like, you show up first. Do you take the good bed? Do you take the good dresser?
Right.
Do you, I mean, it's sort of that always question that you don't want to be that person. And yet, you also really want the lower bunk or the upper bunk, whatever it is. So I feel like Lot sort of does jump in and he picks the better,
for sure,
area.
That's the way the Torah tells it. Yeah, absolutely.
And then you go and sort of fast forward, and Lot ends up in the areas of Sodom and Gomorrah.
Right.
And then what we come to see is that the people of Sodom and Gomorrah have become, again, we saw this last week when we talked about the flood and the Noah's generation, but the people have become corrupt and immoral, and God hears their cries and goes down, comes down to visit, to see what's going on, as does Avram.
Not the visit you want. Like like the principal walking into the classroom type of visit. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that scene is a pretty spicy one. What do you make of Lot's presence in a place where the people seem to have gone awry, and also the whole scene with his daughters and the visitors?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I sort of some random thoughts. One is that the Torah, we talked about this last week a little bit with the promise that God makes, I will not destroy the world. Mm-hmm. But evidently, God didn't say, I will not destroy
a couple of towns here and there.
Gomorrah, So there's that. Like, it's not like it's a get out of jail free card. Yeah. There's still an expectation of certain, levels of behavior. A second thing is just that the Torah, when it wants to paint a corrupt community, a corrupt society, often one of the things it will weave into the description of that community is sins of a sexual nature, right? It's almost every single time, and just this sort of fundamental sense that there's been a breakdown in the way people care for each other in these communities, and that you get to that point and no one's respecting the other person, no one's taking care of the other person, and then it's almost like the message then it's not worth it. Yeah, it's not worth it at that point. One other thing real quick.
Yeah.
You don't know this, but Jerry Garcia band did, this is true. Jerry Garcia band did a song called Gomorrah, which tells the whole story of this.
Oh, wow.
It's a great song.
All right, our listeners should go and listen to that. Although it's not, we jumped ahead just a little bit, so maybe wait till next week to listen in.
Yeah.
By the way, I should listen to that. But at the end of the Torah portion from this week of Lech Lecha, we see that that God pays Avram and Sarai a visit, and that they're told, well, via an angel, really. God sends angels their way, and they're told that they're going to have a child. And it's been a really long time that they've been trying to have a child. And we see this sort of reaction. We read it on the high holidays where Sarai, or soon to be Sarah, laughs when she hears the news, and says, like, my husband being as old as he is, like, that's doubtful, right? That's like dubious to me. But lo and behold, she really does, become pregnant, and God fulfills this promise. Abraham is 99 years old when he has his son Isaac, and Sarah is also about 90. So pretty miraculous. Why do you think we have this story of one family sort of late in their life having this dream come true child? Like, why is that? Why do we have that, and why here?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's a central concern of the Torah, going all the way through with who will be the person that will, in the next generation, that will take up the mantle of what becomes ultimately the covenantal relationship. Maybe that starts with Abraham and Sarah, so that's just a central concern of the Torahs all the way through. But I think also, it's a metaphor that the Torah uses to help us as Jews understand what it means to be a small group in a big world, and that's something we still are today, and we still wrestle with today as well. So I know we're getting to the point where our minder Jeremy is telling us to wrap it up. So Rabbi Saroken, as always, a pleasure.
Oh, a pleasure. We'll be back next week. Thanks for reading along, and
check out the Jerry Garcia song, Gomorrah. For next week, it's homework.
We'll see you then.
Shabbat Shalom.